Hello YouTube, it's Lion here with Hobbies of a Man once again, and today we are doing another book review. Now, this is the fourth book review this month, and keeping in line, we are kind of doing reviews on books that are vaguely in the spooky spirit of Halloween. And like the day before we had Monster Girls, and then we had Witches yesterday. So today we're gonna have some spidery stuff. We're gonna cover Hive Night by Grayson Sinclair. This is published by Starlit Publishing or Publisher. It has both physical and digital releases. I got a digital copy to review a couple months back, but you know, he gave me some warnings about the content, and I decided that I wasn't ready to get into it at the time that he gave me the book, so I am doing it now, and it was really good. But the genres here are lit RPG, which is a type of game lit that's, you know, very directly related to role-playing games, and it like takes into account progression, like growing levels and stuff like that to gain new skills and stuff. So it's a really interesting kind of niche genre. For you anime people, SAO is a very good example. In fact, I think SAO is probably like the one that really made lit RPG big. There was a few other light novels before that that did stuff, but SAO is like the one that really made it explode. But it's not really relevant. The genres are lit RPG, like I just said, and dark fantasy. And this is definitely dark for sure. It's not grimdark. It's not you know, Game of Thrones or something a lot more gritty than that, like Prince of Thorns. But it is definitely less lighthearted than you would usually see in a lot of these types of books. And it's really good. I really enjoyed myself reading this. So the premise here is that basically after an apocalyptic event, life has kind of moved on to exist in a digital kind of realm, in this medieval-esque reality, which is a video game world. And we follow a man trying to defend his, you know, home, the place that he has built over many years, living in this digital world. And then he kind of stumbles along something that he should have stayed away from, basically. And it unravels a bit of a mystery that he kind of has to deal with because he stumbled upon it by accident. And it's really good. I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was really interesting. So we're gonna break this down like usual. We're gonna start with the plot, and it, like I said, it's really good, very action oriented. Like the first thing that you see when you start the book is action. It's a fight scene with this like dragon thing, which is really interesting. I think the story is very clear, and the flashbacks work really well. We are following a parallel storyline, more or less. We follow our main character as he's living in the present, and as he follows kind of his own life from the beginning of like the apocalypse all the way to catching up. And it's really good. It reminds me of Lord of Goblins, the original English light novel that I reviewed that you can see up here, where it has like his current life and his past life, and it's kind of going concurrently. However, unlike Lord of Goblins, here it works really well. It's very clear to see when you're in the present and when you're in the back, or when you're in a flashback. And although they kind of occur somewhat simultaneously without any proper breaks, you are able to see why that is and how it works. And it's usually in the form of a dream or a kind of like jogging of memory. Like you see something that reminds him of something, and then it like goes back into the story and it tells you, and then it comes back to the current time. And each kind of flashback adds a bit of effect or power to what follows it. So it's really well done. It's really interesting. Grayson Sinclair really polished this book a lot. I think it's been published under different versions a couple of times, because if I googled it once, and I saw like 3 or 4 different covers, and they were all by Grayson Sinclair, and I think they even had a different name. The book even had a different name at one point, or something Epsilon Undying. I don't remember exactly what the circumstances were, but I do think that this has been polished extensively, and it really shows that he's done a lot of good work with this. And he just finished writing book 2 a couple weeks ago, so I'm really excited to see where that goes. So yeah, like I said, very good. There's no mess up with the narrative. Everything flows very well. If I broke it down a bit, I could tell you that there's an initial battle, which is the opening scene that I told you. Then he returns to his home base. There's this invasion of his home base. And then the intro of the mystery, which is, if you follow the Joseph Campbell circle, it's like the delving into the underworld kind of section, which is kind of really interesting when you can like see those situations happening as they happen. It's really cool. And then traveling to find answers, and it's very interesting. But yeah, the plot line was wonderful. There was no complaints on my part. I think maybe if I were to complain, I think it moved a little bit too fast. After arriving home, there was definitely enough slowing down world building aspects to it, or like the way it worked was fine. But then after that, it really didn't slow down at all. And it was like too many things happening at once, which is cool in a like quick read kind of non-stop action kind of way. But if you're really trying to do something epic and large scale, it kind of doesn't feel like it fits, I guess. But that's more of a stylistic problem, and it's my preference. It's not really a problem with the book writing, so we'll leave that there, I guess. Now the characters, there's really only 2 that matter. There's a lot more in the background. There's a lot more stuff happening, and there's a lot of characters. It's definitely like not epic fantasy level, but definitely a larger cast. But there's only 2 that are really important. 2 main characters. We have Duran, I guess, from the sword named Durandal, who is this kind of like really messed up, super sad, cynical dude. He has like horrible PTSD / survivor's guilt, and he severely needs emotional healing. Like a therapist would only help him so much. He just needs like love, like people to be like, hey man, it's all good, it's okay, just be okay, kind of. It's like he's pretty rough, like really messed up. And then there's Eris, who is kind of the other side of the coin. She's someone that has to deal with a lot of like I would say emotional abuse, like neglect and stuff like that. And she could easily just be as bad as Duran, but in fact, she chose to go the other way. She chooses to live her life as happily and as well off as possible. Not necessarily as an FU to the people that hurt her, but more of a I want to be better than them kind of way. It's a really interesting dynamic, and I think that the way that they interact is really interesting because their initial relationship is definitely like easily abused. It's a dynamic that has a lot of power imbalance, and it could easily be abused. But Eris chose him for a reason, and it's because he wouldn't abuse it. The way that they develop their relationship is very, very well done. I really find it really good. The one thing with Eris though is that she's a smidge too naive, innocent sometimes. And the way that her like immense unbound happiness kind of makes her seem more like a child than a grown adult, and especially in a world as messed up as this one, it kind of doesn't fit that she would act like that. But that might just be because everyone else around her is so immensely dour compared to her that it feels off a little bit. But I mean, it's not really a problem. That's also another like personal preference thing. I would have liked it if she was a little bit more tempered, but it's not too bad. It's a stylistic choice that the author made, and it really works regardless of whether I think it should be tempered or not. So there's no problem there. All the other characters are good. There's nothing wrong with them. They just don't offer as much dynamic motion to them, I guess, as Darren and Eris. Yeah, I don't know. It's really good. I really like it. At this point in time, you know, a couple weeks after I've read it, I don't really remember any of the other characters' names except Gil, because his name was Gilgamesh and he was like a giant tank kind of guy, like Reinhardt from Overwatch. But the point is that they're not bad and they're not forgettable necessarily. They just did not have enough character building to them to be, you know, immensely relevant, you know, a couple weeks after you've read it. I hope that they have a lot more development in the future, because all of the people in Duran's guild are definitely very interesting. The villains here were not very compelling. Well, that's not necessarily true. They weren't very rememberable, if that makes sense. Nothing about them screamed, I'm an epic villain. The only one that came close was one that was like Duran's old friend turned enemy, but it's not really, I don't know, meaningful because there's so many different bad guys throughout the book. And there's one bad guy that's the big bad, and you don't know anything about them. So all of the other ones are like, okay, we're obviously gonna get this guy beat really easily, or it's not gonna be easy, but he's gonna win anyways. Duran's gonna win anyways. So it's not really a problem, right? But there was none that really felt like they would beat Duran at any point. Well, except at the end, but overall, the villains were okay. So, the world building here, it's very well done. It's very nice. It's developed well. There's a nice inclusion of the RPG stuff. It's very clear. It doesn't bother you sometimes when you're reading RPG stuff. The change of text and the kind of incessant need to show you a new little text box is a bit annoying, but this didn't happen at this time. It was really well defined, I guess, or corralled into the parts where it was necessary, and otherwise you could forget about it until it was necessary again, which was really well done. This is different from Chimera King, where it was like heavily used but then forgotten, and it didn't feel like it was forgotten on purpose, I guess. And I'm using Chimera King because Grayson, Sinclair, and Atlas Kane did write a book together, Wyvern Academy, which got a new cover, and you can see the original review I made for them up there. But yeah, the point is that the RPG stuff was really well incorporated. There was no problems with it. It was cool. A lot of the attack and skill names were really interesting, and they were relatively easy to understand. In terms of like, oh, I see what this text does. I can tell you exactly what the attack is going to be without knowing anything. And the way that the attacks were activated was really well done. It worked nicely. It didn't slow the pace of the fighting at all, which is really great. It's always a problem that I find where like you're spending too much time yelling out attack names and stuff that you really like lose the flow, the fluidity of the battle. But that didn't happen here, so that's really good. I really am interested in the Hive and this kind of insectoid, humanoid colony of people that used to live on this digital planet before they took it over, I guess, because apparently it's supposed to be a video game that they created for the express reason of, you know, moving life online. But apparently there's more to it than that, and I'm not really sure if that was like programmed in or if the program mutated and then stuff happened, or if it's not really a program and they're digitally sending souls to a different planet or something. I'm not really sure, but it's really interesting. But the Hive specifically are these like vaguely spider-like people, and it's really interesting, and it really was cool, and I liked the kind of society that they had. But we didn't get much, and what we did get was really enticing, and I'm really excited to see where it goes from there. So I'm really excited for book 2. And yeah, overall, really great stuff. I really enjoyed the world building here. Okay, that's basically it. So there was no art except the cover, which looks really great. I would have liked some art, honestly. I would have liked some character sheets at the end, at least for Duran and Eris, or maybe some like a portrait of them at some point. Anything like that would have been nice, but it's not really necessary, so it's not like I can fault the author for not having that. The fan service was good. It was definitely smutty. It was enjoyable because all of it was centered around Eris and Duran, and they had this, I wouldn't say beautiful, but very lovely kind of enjoyable relationship to them. And it was like really loving, and I thought it was really nice. And, you know, it was definitely smutty and like that sort of stuff, but it was a certain amount of heartwarmingness to it at the end of the day, I guess. And it was really interesting. The author is really good at this. So yeah, not bad. I would rate this a 4.5 out of 5. I think there could have been a little bit of work there with like Eris and her characterization and stuff like that. And maybe cutting down a bit on the villains, but developing each one of them a little bit more. You know, there was one part where it was like a group of villains, and then the big bad was like this werewolf guy, which is on the cover, but I like out of the crew, but all of the time was spent developing this other guy who ended up really like anticlimactically. So, you know, a few tweaks here and there, but nothing that was really bad. So yeah. With a 4.5, I will read the next book as soon as it comes out, or well, as soon as possible after it comes out. But yeah, I definitely recommend this. I think this would be really good if you enjoy things like Shield Hero or Overlord. Maybe even a bit of grimdark traditional fantasy like Game of Thrones or something like that. But yeah, thank you guys very much for watching. Please like, subscribe, and comment down below. Let me know what you guys thought. And as always, thank you guys very much for watching. And see you guys later.